Child's Play 3, the novelization by Matthew J. Costello. Chapter 18. Chucky watched the Colonel collapse before him. You gotta be fucking kidding me. He walked close to Cochran and poked him with the knife point, but Cochran's eyes were wide open, funhouse eyes. Except, "This is no fun," he said. "Here I was gonna have a nice party with the old general, and he dies in front of me. Dies of fright." Chucky grinned at the thought. "Hey, I'm scarier than Nam. Oh yeah. One look at me with the pig sticker, and John Wayne kicks the bucket." Chucky walked around the dead body, just to make sure the idiot wasn't playing possum. Every few steps he jabbed Cochran's body with his knife, trying to get it to stir. Nope, he thought. All the fun is out of this one. Yes, sirree. He saw the pocket of Cochran's sweatpants. Chucky dug his small hand in and felt a great loop of keys. Well, isn't that handy? He thought. Now I have the run of the place. Great. And then he was back at Cochran's head. The mouth was open, a gummy pit that Chucky could smell. He didn't like that. It's not a good thing that he could smell. Because if I can smell it, things are moving along. This damn body could become mine forever. No way, Jack. Chucky gave Cochran's cheek another poke. Out for the count. Poor bastard. He looked at Cochran's eyes. Funny how people look when they're dead. The big fish eyes. The pupils shrunk to tiny dots. They look as if they just saw their worst nightmare and couldn't deal with it. Or maybe that's how they look after I've dealt with them. He chuckled at that, and he remembered when he knew he had found his life's work. It started with stealing, ripping off wealthy idiots who had too much stuff and needed someone to help them share it. Income redistribution. His first partner was an old pro, a guy who knew everything about breaking and entering, a guy who had done 2 terms in the Illinois State Penitentiary, a real pro. And, remembered Chucky, the only reason he liked working with me was that I would do anything. I'd walk up to someone's door in broad daylight, ring the goddamn bell, knock the whatever, and if someone opened the door looking for the Electrolux man or Federal Express, they'd see me. If they opened the door a crack, I was in. My partner liked it when people weren't home. Me, I preferred it the other way. One time, I discovered what Damballa wanted from me. It was a simple concept. It just took time coming. I could have Damballa's protection, his power, but there was a price. Damballa needed something from these people, some kind of energy generated by their fear, their pain. I was Damballa's emissary, his apostle. I'd get us inside the house, Chucky remembered, and after we had all the stuff out of the home, the silver, the cash, and any electronic garbage worth selling, the old pro left me alone, with the person being robbed. He didn't want her talking. Couldn't have that now, could we? I'd do anything, and he knew it. And that's when the woman's eyes would go bug wild, spinning around inside her head like a cartoon character, dancing on a hot plate. She was gagged, so there were no screams, and that only made her terror worse. It seemed so natural, Chucky remembered. I'd spread out my gloved hands like a virtuoso about to play a masterpiece. My hands, that's all I'd need. And I took forever to do it. Walking up to the woman, she rattled the chair, rocking it back and goddamn forth. Small, muffled grunts escaped from her gag. "What are you saying?" I'd say. "What do you want?" "You want me to put my hands around your neck? Is that what you want?" Geez, I don't know now, but if that's what you want, well, okay. And that was so goddamn funny. Humor always a trademark of mine. Leave 'em laughing, wanting more. The laughing dead. And the feel of her neck, it was like discovering one's medium. Some people work with clay, some shape wood. I work with necks. It took a long time, the first one. Charles Lee Ray's partner eventually came inside, hissing at him. "What the hell's taking so long?" he'd ask. "Can't rush good work," Charles thought. He finished up making those spinning bug eyes go still, and then he turned and left, feeling very good. "The newspaper gave me a name," Chucky remembered. "So many years ago. A name. The Lakeshore Strangler. So many years ago." Chucky stepped away from Cochran, away from the dead man. The night custodian'll probably bop along soon and find the stiff. And Chucky thought, the Lakeshore Strangler will live again. Oh yes, just as soon as Tyler grows up, eats his Wheaties. Only this time, I'll never get caught. Experience is the best teacher. Chucky tossed the keys in the air, caught them, and hurried away. Andy pulled his jacket tight. He stood on the portico with most of the other cadets. The rain had stopped, and there was a pale light in the east. It was dawn. Day 2 in Wonderland. The wind chilled his naked scalp as he watched the paramedics wheel out the stretcher. Cochran was dead, heart attack, and it seemed as if the entire school was out here to watch the colonel leave Kent for the last time. The red bubble light on top of the ambulance flashed, rotating around. No rush here, thought Andy. Cochran, rumor had it, was dead, DOA. The stretcher appeared, and Andy saw that Cochran's face was covered. Change that rumor to a fact, thought Andy. And what about Tyler, Andy wondered. What happened to Tyler last night in Chucky? He saw some of the younger cadets on the other side of the ambulance. He spotted Tyler. The kid smiled at him and waved. Like he was at a parade, Andy laughed. He's only a little kid. He doesn't understand the protocol of death. But Andy nodded at him, still smiling. You're still here, huh, kid? Chucky didn't get you? Unless it was a possibility. If Chucky had done the soul swap, that could be Chucky. Waving at Andy, smiling at him, Andy started to push his way through the crowd to Tyler. I'll know, he thought. I'll know if it's really Tyler. Shelton shook his head, and then, as the stretcher passed, he saluted. He took a breath. The paramedics unstrapped the body and, taking care to keep the face covered, they loaded it into the ambulance. The man was an animal, Ellis. He was strong as an ox. Damn, he lived through 2 wars, man. Ellis nodded. They say his ticker just gave out. Shelton shook his head. Cochran's body disappeared into the ambulance. But why? Why now? He turned to Ellis and looked right at him. Why me? Ellis shrugged. A paramedic slammed the ambulance door. It wouldn't be hurrying to the hospital. It wouldn't have to use its siren. No rush here, thought Shelton. And he thought, Cochran's passing leaves a void, a leadership void, and somebody will have to fill that void. Andy pushed closer, but there was a wall of cadets still cutting him off from Tyler, only feet away. A policeman stood behind the ambulance holding a clipboard. Andy felt the cadets pushing at his back, and he turned. He saw Tyler. What are you doing up, fella? The cop said. Tyler blinked at him. Andy could hear the cop, hear Tyler's answer. The ambulance started up. Huh? The policeman repeated. Kinda young, you should be asleep, probably. Tyler smiled. I was playing hide and seek. The policeman shook his head. Andy heard Tyler, and he tried to push his way closer. The ambulance slowly pulled away from the front of the building. Who with? With Charles, Tyler said. The policeman shook his head at the imagination of kids. The kid was playing an imaginary game with an imaginary friend. Andy pushed closer. It's no imaginary game, he thought, and Charles sure isn't a friend. Andy heard Tyler. He's my friend till the end." And then the policeman gently guided Tyler inside, tugging him away from Andy, from the crowd of cadets watching the ambulance cart away their fallen leader. Tyler disappeared, and Andy thought, he's still Tyler, and there's still time to save him. To save him and stop Chucky. Chapter 19. A creature, part human, part gorilla, one of Kent's gourmet chefs, plopped a ladle of scrambled eggs on Andy's outstretched plate. The yellow glop landed on top of 2 sausages that looked to have the consistency and probably the flavor of sticks. At least the OJ looked wet and yellow. The mess hall was packed with rows of rectangular tables, perfectly spaced with the oldest cadets in the front and the youngest in the back. Andy exited the line and looked for a place to sit. He saw Whitehurst sitting at one table, but there was no room there. Not that anyone was talking to Whitehurst. He sat alone looking down at his tray. Andy started moving, looking for some place to sit. I guess the cost of my friendship is too high. Whitehurst is already enough of an outcast without me hanging on his neck. Andy looked for a spot, but all he saw were unfriendly faces looking at him, remembering the previous night's jog. Someone entered from the back of the giant mess hall. It was Botnik, racing down the aisle looking at the cadets. There were flags on each wall, odd flags, maybe from the military school's famous battle groups. Andy didn't recognize any of them. Botnik stopped right by Whitehurst. Andy watched the barber flick at Whitehurst's hair. "Aw, cut him some slack," Andy thought. The mess hall is filled with cadets, a few with hair longer than Whitehurst, and you have to pounce on him? Andy watched a second. Botnik rubbed Whitehurst's head and laughed, as if he were ordering Whitehurst to come by for a visit with Botnik's shears. It's not so bad, thought Andy. You get to watch cartoons and hear Botnik laugh. The barber kept moving through the mess hall. Andy heard him talk to another kid. "Nelson, you need a trim too. I want to see you this PM." Nelson nodded. Andy saw Tyler sitting off with the younger kids. He was playing his Game Boy, lost to the beeps and buzzes, and there was a space next to him. Andy walked over there. He heard someone laugh, but he kept on walking. When someone tripped him, Andy tried to get his balance, to catch himself, to stop his fall, but he tumbled forward, his tray out in front of him. He watched his plate of eggs and sausages go sliding off the end of the tray, tumbling, upside down, and all the tables surrounding him broke out in laughter. Andy's knees smacked into the floor hard, but he got up. He scraped the egg off the floor, grabbed the 2 stick sausages. He mopped at the orange juice. A mess hall officer then walked by. "Kinda clumsy, pleb. Better watch where you go." The officer threw some napkins to the ground. Andy nodded and wiped up the mess. Surrounded by the giggles. Yes, Andy thought, I've certainly made a good impression here. He picked up his tray and walked to Tyler's table. Andy sat down next to Tyler, but the kid didn't even notice him. His face was all concentration, looking at his Game Boy, pushing the buttons. "Tyler," Andy said. The kid didn't respond. "Tyler!" "Hi, Barkley. Just wait a minute, just a second. I'm almost there, almost... Oh, darn it!" Tyler looked up. "I blew the last screen." Andy nodded. Tyler looked down at the mess on Andy's tray. "Hey, what happened?" "Never mind, Tyler. I've got to talk to you about Chucky." "You mean Charles?" "Yeah, whatever. There's stuff you don't know. Have you seen him?" "Not since last night." Andy looked around and he thought, "Where are you, Charles? Where are you hiding in this place?" He could literally be anywhere, Andy thought. He's a little guy. He could be back in that kitchen whipping up scrambled eggs. Andy turned to Tyler. "Look, he's hiding somewhere, Tyler. He's gonna lay low until he knows you're alone." Andy reached out and touched Tyler's arm. "And then he's gonna come after you, Tyler. He's going to come after you. He's not your friend." Tyler listened, his mouth open, trying to understand. But then he smiled and shook his head. "He just wants to play." Andy pounded the table. "No! Listen to me, Tyler. No matter what he says, no matter what the hell he tells you, no matter what he promises you, you've got to stay away from him, you understand? You've got to stay away from him. Don't let him fool you. He's bad." But Tyler shook his head. He picked up his game, pressed a button. An annoying electronic song blared from the machine. "Charles isn't bad, he's a good guy. It says so on his shirt." Andy reached out and grabbed Tyler's arm, making him turn. "No, Tyler, he lies. He's not a good guy, believe me. He's bad news. He's hurt a lot of people. God, Tyler, you've got to believe me." But then Tyler's eyes narrowed. Some funny thought was going through his little kid's mind. And then he nodded, some great understanding finally achieved. "Oh, I see. My dad. He says if you can't say anything nice about someone, don't say anything at all. I understand now." Tyler stood up. He stuck out his lip while he talked. "You're just jealous, yeah, 'cause Charles is my best friend now instead of yours." Tyler picked up his tray. "No, Tyler, I have to tell you." But Tyler stormed off with his tray. Andy looked around at the other little soldiers, playing with their eggs, trying to cut the rubber sausage. Andy stood up, thinking, "Where is he? Where is that damn doll?" Whitehurst trudged down to the dungeon, the name the cadets gave Botnik's combination hair salon and torture parlor. "He cuts hair the way most people mow their lawns," thought Whitehurst, "and my hair isn't even long." But Botnik was no different from the rest of the monkeys in this zoo. Everybody loves a fat kid, especially if they can make life miserable for him. Botnik had just finished with another kid when Whitehurst walked into the shop. "Oh, Whitehurst, glad to see you fit an appointment into your busy calendar. Come on, Chubby, the chair's getting cold." Whitehurst walked over to the barber chair. Botnik quickly covered him with a white sheet. The barber had a cigarette in his mouth, dripping ashes on the sheet. "What a slob," thought Whitehurst. Botnik grabbed his electric razor off the counter. He clicked it on. A puff of smoke blew in Whitehurst's face and he coughed. Botnik started running his trimmer over Whitehurst's scalp. He moved to the front, trimming Whitehurst's spiky tufts down to peach fuzz. "You know, Whitehurst, you are the sorriest excuse for a soldier to ever disgrace these halls." Whitehurst turned away. "God, I'm trapped here with this abusive monkey on my case." Botnik moved to the left side. "Face it, you're not cut out for this. Why don't you do yourself and the school a favor and leave Kent?" An ash fell close to Whitehurst's face. More second-hand smoke wafted from Botnik. "If I had any choice in the matter, I would." Botnik made his razor swoop close to Whitehurst's ear. "Smart ass," he said. Then he shut off the razor. He pulled the sheet off Whitehurst. "There you go, princess. Presto, you're bald." Whitehurst looked in the mirror. That mirror reflected the back mirror, creating an infinity of images, an infinity of Whitehursts. All of them bald, all of them looking pissed off. Botnik chuckled. A real mental case, thought Whitehurst. He could be institutionalized if he wasn't already in an institution. Whitehurst started to leave. "What, no tip?" And that brought a great hearty har-har from Botnik. A Cro-Magnon if there ever was one. Botnik laughed again. "What, no tip?" Very funny. The fat kid didn't like that joke, though. No sense of humor. Botnik swept up the piles of hair, a good morning's load, and then bent down with the shovel and swept the clippings into a trash barrel. "All set for this afternoon's lot," he thought. "What, no tip? Ha! Very funny." Still laughing, Botnik walked over to his razor. He unplugged it and wrapped the cord around it tightly. He liked cutting hair in the afternoon better. The tunes were on then, DuckTales, Tiny Toons. Some wacky animals were always good for a laugh. He carried the razor over to the cabinet just to the side of the barber chairs. He opened the cabinet and started to put in the razor, when he felt something. "What?" He felt some more. His fingers closed on something. "What the fuck?" He pulled out whatever it was. He pulled out a doll. "Damn," he said. "How'd this get in here?" He looked at the doll. "Hey," he thought, "the synapse finally firing. I've seen this doll before. Yeah, on TV. It's one of them. The actual name of the doll escaped him. Then he remembered something else. These dolls can talk. Yeah, that's the big thing. They can talk. Botnik looked at the door to his barber shop, checking that no one was coming in. Then he held the doll out at arm's length. He grinned, feeling just a bit stupid, just a bit silly. Then he said, "Hi." and damned if the doll didn't come to life, twisting its head left and right. And boy, all that head twisting reminded him of something kind of weird. The doll clicked his eyes open and spoke, just like the TV commercial said it would.
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end. Heidi-ho, ha ha ha.
Botnik laughed aloud. If this isn't the damnedest thing, a talking doll. Ugly sucker. Heidi-ho, what a wacky toy. He laughed while he also studied the doll. It kind of looked like a demented kid. The head was real large and the eyes were way too big. But nothing was worse than that hair, way too long. Not regulation length, Botnik said, and he laughed again, doubled over at his own bountiful wit. He shook, holding the doll. He was still holding the razor. He looked at the bright orange hair, and Botnik had an idea. Chapter 20. Botnik laughed. Ugly little doll, all that orange hair and that outfit. The doll may talk, but he dresses for the birds. Botnik held the electric razor. That mop ain't regulation, Chucky. How long's it been since you had a trim? The doll turned its head again. So weird, just like that kid in The Exorcist. He blinked his eyes. God, they almost look like they can see.
Hey, wanna play?
Again, Botnik laughed. What a killer. Okay, he said. You asked for it. Still holding the doll, Botnik reached over and plugged the razor in. He flipped the switch with his thumb. This was going to be good. Yeah, seeing that stupid-looking doll with a real haircut. Botnik started bringing the razor close to Chucky's head. When the doll's arm moved fast. I didn't know it could do that, Botnik thought. Didn't know it could move like that, and he watched Chucky turn his head. The doll looked at the counter, and then a little doll hand grabbed something, a straight razor, sitting in a jar of sea blue liquid. Chucky whipped the blade out. What? Botnik moaned. No, hey! The barber didn't think to let go of the doll. He still held the good guy out in front of him while the straight razor arced toward him. Quickly, professionally, the doll was someone who knew how to handle a razor. It sliced through Botnik's throat. At first, he didn't feel anything. Just a small pain as if he had just gotten a paper cut at his collar line. But then he felt the liquid running down his neck. He opened his mouth to talk. That was a mistake. Botnik felt the skin pull apart. He tasted blood in his mouth. He heard the doll saying, Hey, princess, presto, you're dead. Botnik shook his head. More pain, more tearing. He hurt now. He thought, I'm in big trouble. This doll isn't a good doll, and I'm in very big trouble. Chucky grinned at him. Oh, that look is definitely you. Botnik tried to moan, but instead all he heard was a gurgle, coming from down there, down where the slit was. He felt his knees melt. Finally, he dropped the doll, and Botnik crumpled to the floor. He saw blood spatters on the clean white linoleum floor below him. The doll stood there watching him. Botnik fell forward. Just a little off the top. The electric razor flew from his hand, and he watched Chucky quickly scoop it up, still buzzing. He walked close to Botnik's head. Botnik saw the sneakers covered with cute pictures of planes and spaceships and tools. He heard the doll talk again. What you need is a whole new image. Everything was red. The floor, the walls, everything was covered with a red film. He heard the razor, but it sounded as if it was muffled by cotton. He felt, barely, the razor on his head, cutting his hair. And the last thing Botnik heard, the very last thing, was Chucky, cackling like a witch in his ear. Damn, thought Whitehurst. Why did I have to forget my book bag in Botnik's dungeon? He walked down the steps to the barber shop. It'll just give him an excuse to dump on me some more. You don't belong here, Whitehurst. You and Kent don't go together. Tell me about it. I already know. Whitehurst pushed open the door to Botnik's house of horror. Sergeant Botnik, I forgot my... The first thing Whitehurst heard was the whir of the electric razor, and then the sound of something gurgling like a tap running slow. His hand locked on the doorknob. As he looked down to the floor, he saw Botnik. The pool of red surrounding his head was still spreading, and the doll, the good guy doll, standing next to the head, cutting Botnik's hair. And he heard laughing as the doll trailed the razor up and down Botnik's head. Whitehurst felt frozen. He tried to back up. Just back up and get out of here before... The doll turned. His face looked like the face of a maniac. The doll's lips were pulled back from his teeth, and the plastic teeth looked gleaming and wet. The doll nodded. It was a threat, a promise, like the way kids look when they're about to beat Whitehurst up, like, "We're gonna get you." The doll opened its mouth and he said, "Boo!" Whitehurst bolted from the door and ran up the steps away from the barber, away from the blood, thinking Barkley was right. God, Barkley was right. Either that or I'm losing my mind. Whitehurst ran to the quad. He was late. Everyone was supposed to be assembled by 0100. Whitehurst puffed as he ran, gasping at the air. It was clear, almost cool, and he kept thinking about what he saw. I have to tell someone. I have to get help. Except, he thought, who would believe me? Barkley, but no one else. And then, what would they think? What actually happened to Botnik? Who was the last person to see him? Whitehurst rubbed his chin. I have to speak to Barkley, he thought, and he ran harder. He got to the quad, and Sergeant Clark was addressing the full corps of cadets. Damn, thought Whitehurst, I'm way late. He saw his company, saw Barkley and De Silva. They were wearing blue sashes. God, the garbage man got eaten by his truck. Colonel Cochran had a heart attack. Botnik's had his throat cut, and they're still planning on having the field games? He heard Clark as he ran to position. He looked up and saw Shelton watching him. I know, Clark said, and you know that Colonel Cochran would never, under any circumstances, want us to deviate from our routine. That's the military way, and there was no one at Kent more military than Colonel Cochran. Whitehurst gasped at the air. Some cadets giggled at him. I'm crazy, thought Whitehurst. What I saw, I didn't see. I'm losing my mind. Therefore, Clark said, the war games will proceed as scheduled. Cadet Major Shelton will command the blue team. Botnik, Whitehurst wanted to scream. He's dead. To hell with your teams, your games. Botnik's... Cadet Captain Rollins will head up the Reds. Whitehurst looked up. He saw Clark waving two flags, one blue and one red. The object is simple, to capture the other team's flags and bring it safely back to base. Whitehurst saw Barkley and De Silva turn to him as he reached the front ranks of his company. He looked at Barkley. I must look like a crazy person, Whitehurst thought. Will Barkley be able to see what happened to me in my eyes? Clark shook his head, finally noticing Whitehurst's late arrival. He was holding up a .22 rifle. You'll pick up your weapons in the armory before moving out. You'll be using the standard issue .22 caliber semi-automatic. And your ammo. Clark fired the gun at the wall of a building. The sound echoed through the quad. Whitehurst took his place in line. He saw a red splotch on the wall. We're going to play paintball? Thought Whitehurst. Just paint? But he watched the splot drip down the side of the wall. Barkley tapped Whitehurst's shoulder. You okay? Whitehurst turned to him. I have to talk to Barkley, he thought. But, out of the corner of his eye, Whitehurst saw Shelton watching them. He turned back to Clark. If you get hit, you're dead. Hike back to base. Any questions? Clark waited. Shelton still glowered at Whitehurst. Good. Company commanders, assemble your men and women. Shelton turned away to face the company. The cadet major yelled, Sound off! And starting at the far corner of the quad, the cadets began calling out their names, company by company. Whitehurst felt something hit his arms. Here, De Silva said. Whitehurst, still puffy, still breathing hard, looked down at the blue armband that De Silva just threw at him. He tried slipping it on, but it got stuck and started curling. De Silva giggled. She came close to him and pulled the armband down while pulling Whitehurst's arm through. Then she looked at Whitehurst and ran a hand across his nearly bald scalp. Looks like Botnik's in a bad mood today, she said. Whitehurst turned to her, wanting to say, You don't know the half of it. His mood couldn't be worse. But said to Barkley, who was watching him, Barkley, listen. "What's wrong?" De Silva said. Whitehurst looked around. Other cadets were close by, watching, listening. They would hear, and everyone would think I'm crazy, or worse, he thought. Old Botnik's dead, he was killed by a doll, you know, and Whitehurst is crazy. Whitehurst looked around and shrugged. Nothing's wrong, nothing. And he remembered what Barkley had said about the doll, about Tyler. He looked across the quad. He saw Tyler slipping on a red armband. The armband was bright even from here. A big, bright red armband. Ooh, fun and games at the old military school. Well, thought Chucky, that's just great. Just peachy, 'cause I love to play. He was in the armory, the rows of guns and ammo behind him. The building was deserted. Everyone was out in the quad listening to the rules of the game. Chucky looked out the window at the two teams. There's Tyler, and there's Andy. And hey, look at that. They're on different teams. Is this fate or what? Rules. They can be such annoying things. Chucky slipped down from the window ledge. Yes, he thought, I'm a big advocate of change and rules. Makes the game more interesting. He turned back to the metal cage filled with weapons. He clambered over the fence. His sneakers fit the mesh perfectly, and then scooted down the other side. Now let's see what exactly we have here. He saw a box of grenades. Better take one or two of these, he thought. Don't want to run short. Then he came to the rifles, arranged in two large sections. Some of the rifles had red markings and some had blue markings. Chucky grabbed the top red rifle. He emptied the magazine and saw paint bullets where live ammo would go. He tilted the gun and dumped out the red pellets. There we go, he said. Now he looked up. On a high shelf he saw smaller boxes labeled .22 ammunition. Chucky climbed up on one shelf and he stretched up to the box. He brought the box down and started filling the magazine with live rounds. He chuckled to himself. Well, this ought to slow Andy down. He filled the gun. Of course, he thought, it will still make a red stain, more of a permanent stain. Now the game will be real interesting. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been chapters 18, 19, and 20. Alright guys, seriously, I really enjoyed these 3 chapters. We got a lot of extra stuff in the beginning. I'm glad we got the you gotta be fucking kidding me with the whole Cochran having a heart attack thing. It was cool to see Chucky walk around and poke at him, just hoping against all hope that he wasn't dead, that he could have some fun with him. And then having Chucky reminisce about how he used to do things whenever he was the Lakeshore Strangler. That was a really cool flashback. I mean, it was short, but I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this book more than I enjoyed the movie, and I love this movie. But these flashbacks are awesome. Can you imagine these kind of flashbacks in the movies? You know, using Brad Dourif more than just his voice. Like having flashbacks and letting Brad be Charles Lee Ray in the flashbacks. That would have been amazing. I mean, I know they did this in Cursive Chucky, but, you know, he was getting up there in age when that was made, and they had to put that big old wig on him trying to make him look younger. It was too late, you know, but it would have been cool back in the day. Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, if they had shown us flashbacks with Brad Dourif. You know, utilize him. They had him there. Great star power. Great voice, but they could have given us some flashbacks with the real Lakeshore Strangler. So anyways, enjoyed the flashbacks, enjoyed him poking and prodding Cochran, hoping that Cochran wasn't all the way dead so he could finish him off the fun way. And then with Botnik, we got a more extended death scene with Botnik than we did in the movie. The stuff in between with Andy trying to warn Tyler and everything was pretty cut and dry from the movie. But I liked how Chucky, it was more extended than just slitting his throat and saying, presto, you're dead, you know? And even after he killed the guy, Chucky's down there cutting his hair anyways, even though the guy's already bled out and dead. I do appreciate that Whitehurst was wanting to talk to Andy and tell him what happened, because in the movie they just made it seem like Whitehurst was just a chicken shit coward, you know, that wasn't gonna say anything. He's just gonna sit there and be delusional and pretend it never happened. At least in the book here, they're building it up like Whitehurst wants to talk to Andy about it, but he just doesn't want anybody else to hear it, and he's waiting for a chance to talk to him in private. And that makes me wonder if the whole redemption thing from the movie is going to play out differently. Spoilers here, everybody, if you haven't seen the movie. So stop listening now if you haven't seen this movie. I'm wondering if his are you still here? Okay, if you're still here, don't get mad if it spoils something coming up. I'm wondering if Whitehurst's redemption arc, where he throws himself on the grenade, if that's going to play out the same in the book as the movie. Because in the movie, it was like, you know, he could have said something sooner and stopped some of this, but he didn't. And in the book, he's wanting to say something, he just hasn't done it yet. And I did enjoy that instead of just having Chucky, you know, one quick scene of him putting taking the paint ammo out and putting in the live ammo, it actually had him watching as they were making the teams for the war games, and you know, him climbing over the fence and sitting there thinking and plotting and swapping these bullets out. It's got me excited for the rest of the book. I cannot wait to get back at this in another day or two, and hope you're all enjoying it too. Let me know in the comment section what you think of the book so far. For some reason, some of these uploads for Child's Play 3 haven't been showing up on people's notifications, so be sure to check every other day. I should be putting out a new upload every other day of Child's Play 3. So if you don't get a notification, I don't know why it's doing that. Check my community page here on the channel, because if I realize the notifications didn't go out, I will put up a post on the community page. And just check every other day. And I'll see you soon. Until then, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying, okay, boils and ghouls, thanks for listening. Pleasant dreams! And I'll see you real soon.